Today, you'll meet a guy that is a quadruple threat in the note business. Stay tuned. Welcome to today's edition of NoteSchool TV, where every week at 11:05 Central Time, we bring you great content and we bring you a great guest, right? So this week's guest is no different. Yes, he is what I call a quadruple threat. We'll explain what that means in just a minute. But before we do that, three things I'd love for you to do for me. Number one, hit like so that we know that you are liking what you see on NoteSchool TV. Number two, if you have not already done so, subscribe to NoteSchool TV. And then number three, hit that bell notification. That's right. Hit it right now so that you don't have to remember to do it later, right? Hit that bell notification so you will be reminded when we go live every week. When? At 11:05 Central Time. So also, if you would like more information about what we do at NoteSchool, like to attend one of our one-day classes that we do, just simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV, and you will be able to, well, we'll contact you and we'll have a conversation with you either via email, or we'll give you a call if we need to as well. So with that, let's do a couple of things. Oh, and by the way, please keep those comments coming. You guys have done a great job over the last few months of sending in comments on that particular episode that we did that day. So if you'll go ahead and continue to do that, it really helps us out. It helps Eddie and I know, where we are, what we're doing, and we love hearing from you, right? So please keep those comments coming in. And like I said, we love to hear from you. So we're going to do now what we do every week at this time. So let's go to the news. So today's news, we start with, well, we all know this, right? Unless you live in Siberia, and you probably still know that if you do live there, mortgage rates hit 5.89, highest level since, well, the Great Recession, which was back in started in 2000, the fall of 2008. So yeah, that brings with us. Let me get my pen going here. That brings a lot into what's happening. Number one, a year ago, well, rates were half of what they are today. And so, they talk about the average price home, or the median price home, being around $400,000 still. So your mortgage payment on that house would have gone up. Well, it would have gone up about $500 to $700 a month, guys. So, the caption on this, and this is from the Wall Street Journal, it says, what a housing market cool down could mean for inflation and home buyers, right? So it is not so much that, we're going to see home values drop like a rock. It's really not. There's still strong demand for housing. There is still low inventory. So as far as home prices dropping crazily in the future, none of the analysts are calling that. Redfin Analytics, Zillow Analytics, Mortgage Bankers Association, and so on. So anyway, stay tuned on that. This is just kind of a fact of life today. And according to CNBC, mortgage apps Plunge, as refis drop 83%. So yeah, a lot of that drop is from, people just aren't refining at this point, right? It's the 12 people that were left that didn't refi when rates were very low. Also, they report that tappable equity, right? Equity that a borrower could borrow against in their home that still gives them 20% equity in their property has dropped, well, to $11.5 trillion. It had gotten as high as $16.1 trillion. So yeah, that's a pretty good drop, about $5 trillion. But again, it just, what went up needed to come down just a little bit. So, and then finally in the news today, Fannie Mae has just announced the details of their latest non-performing loan sale. Yeah, we've been talking about non-performing loans now really for a couple of years again. And so there are 4 large pools, and there is 5,780 loans in the one pool, totaling $959 million in UPB, unpaid principal balance. And then there is a community impact pool. It's only 70 loans worth $16.3 million, and they're geographically located in the Miami-Dade area. So the bids on these loans are due October 4th. And well, this is just, and by the way, when 5,700 loans are sold out of, well, somewhere around 2 to 2.5 million non-performing loans in the system, just a real small drop in the bucket, right? Real small drop. And these loans will be sold in bulk, and then they will trickle down through our platform at Notes Direct and other platforms there, so that we'll be able to pick those off one by one. So that is today's news as we see it. And now it is time to bring on my our guest today. And that is Mr. Justin Wagner. Mr. Justin Wagner. How about Mr. Justin Bogard? Come on, Justin.
I'm not Justin Wagner. Right?
You are not Justin Wagner, right?
I wish I was.
But you know Justin Wagner.
I do. He's a good dude. I like him.
He is. He was our guest on here a few months ago. And, you know, when Justin Wagner was on, we were talking about non-performing loans, because good Lord, he did, you know, north of 300 non-performing loans in that last cycle. But you know, Justin, I talked about you in the opening here, the teaser, and I said you were a quadruple threat. So I'm going to explain to everybody what that means. That means that Justin he does performing loans, right? He does non-performing loans. He does creative financing, and certainly he is an expert, number 4, at raising capital. So we'll talk a little bit about all of those, Justin. So you and I met at Indiana RIA in June of 2016.
That's right.
6 years ago.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. 6 years ago.
You were just a young buck back then, man.
I had a couple more pieces of hair on the top of my head.
And you know, Justin is a guy that he saw the vision, right? So you tell your story. I could tell your story, but I don't want to. I want you to tell your story about where you kind of where you started, why you got into the note space. You know, you've got 2 beautiful young ladies, 2 daughters, and so on. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Justin.
Yeah, so I have 2 daughters. They're currently 11 and 9. So I got a 6th grader and a 4th grader. And so that is starting to become a little bit different now that they're becoming, you know, tweeners or tweenagers, as you call them. But I love them. It's fun. That's my personal life. As far as getting into the note business, it kind of started when I was watching a lot of HGTV, and I wanted to be one of those people that could flip a house and make $40,000 or $50,000 in a half hour. Right. That sounds good to me. So I took some seminars, and I learned quickly how difficult it was for me to run a business as a fix and flipper or wholesaler, or even having rental properties. And I quickly moved into notes because, you know, my buddy here on camera, Okeechobee Joe here.
Okeechobee Joe, there you go.
Okeechobee Joe. He came to town, and you're exactly right. When you were showing those slides during the presentation, a light bulb went off and said, this is really for me. This makes sense to me, and this is what I want to do. I would like to sit at a desk virtually and look at assets on a spreadsheet and determine whether I want to move forward or not, and discover due diligence a different way. Instead of going to a house, instead of using contractors and depending on other people, I'm just depending on myself and the calculator and the risk that I want to take on deals. So it totally fit what I wanted to do. And from that day forward, I stopped doing the traditional real estate business, and I fully focused on notes business.
And Justin, I mean, I mean, this is your full-time gig, right? I mean, the note space is your full-time gig. So you went from, something, from doing what you were doing. And, I was just thinking while you were talking, and the cool thing about this, and one of the things that I do is, you have things going on in the day. You do, I do, we all do. And we can kind of take care of family issues. And I like the fact that I can come in my little space at 10:30 at night or 11 when everybody else is sleeping. I can kind of work for an hour and a half and get real creative and do things that you just can't, because everything's quiet. Your girls are going to bed. My girls are going to bed.
Yeah.
It just works out. And I love that. I love that lifestyle about this whole business.
Yeah. You kind of dictate your own schedule, right?
Right. And our friend Ben Hott, he always talks about, he's, you make more than full-time money on a part-time basis. I think that's one of the things that he says. So Justin, when you started, and in this dude, he hit the ground, right? He hit the ground at a sprint, right? I mean, he hit the ground and he was going. So I was just thinking, so what was the first deal that you did back in 2016? I don't even remember that.
I think what I did was I purchased a non-performing loan and a performing loan within the same probably 3 to 6 month window.
Right.
And I had partnered with somebody on a non-performing loan, and I had resold the performing loan that I bought to somebody else. It actually was my biggest spread as far as dollar amount, as far as making a profit.
Right.
When I did that for the performing loan. So I was kind of spoiled from day one. It also happened to me in wholesaling. I had my biggest wholesale spread when I did nothing to the property. Somebody said, "Hey, do you want to buy it?" I said, "Yeah." And somebody else wanted to buy it. And I go, "Okay, you can buy it for this price." I spent like 2 minutes on it. I felt like it. I made the most money ever for 2 minutes of my time. It's just kind of funny how that works out. And it also happened at the very first stages of getting into the real estate business. So I was kind of spoiled from that moment on. But yeah, I bought a non-performing and a performing, and I definitely would encourage people to go after performing first to get the idea and to step your foot in there. But I went ahead and did it because my back was against the wall per se. I didn't have a full-time job, and I wanted to make this real. And so I put all my eggs in this basket, so to speak. And I had to go out and sprint. I had to go out and figure it out and watch a lot of videos and get a lot of training in.
You burned the ships, right? When you landed, right? You burned the ships, and there wasn't any going back.
I didn't want to go back, right? I didn't want to live that lifestyle like you talked about with schedule. Like I had a schedule of, let's call it 9 to 5. And those are the hours that I worked. And those are the times I was chained to my desk, so to speak. And I didn't really like to work for somebody else per se. Not that I didn't like them. I just didn't like to work for somebody else. And
the girls were little.
Yeah. The girls were little. They were, they're single digit ages there, under 5.
Well, we would talk back then, and Justin say, "Okay, I've only got a minute. I'm getting ready to drop the girls off. I'm getting ready, not drop them off, but go hang with them while they did karate or what was it?"
Yeah, we did Taekwondo for the girls. Did not me. I did not do Taekwondo. Right. They tried to talk me into it, and I knew better than that.
Oh,
but they did Taekwondo for 3 or 4 years, and they got up to the black belt level.
Yeah. So, and you live in a market, Justin, Indianapolis. I mean, it really is kind of a hotbed for investors coming from all over the United States.
Oh, definitely.
Wanting to invest in that market. So you used to, and there's a lot of wholesalers there, right?
Yes,
and,
there
are. We know them, Brett and Mandy and Will and people like that are there. And so you did something that a lot of people didn't do, and you formed relationships with those wholesalers as well. And these were big wholesalers, right? I mean, there are many more, but talk a little bit about that.
So I just kind of learned quickly of a lot of those wholesalers that were doing probably 100 plus wholesale deals a year. somewhere between 100 to 400 a year, believe it or not,
Right.
back in the heyday there. And I learned quickly how they were doing seller financing. I learned that they had enough knowledge to know that getting some passive income and not having a rental was a really good way to diversify their portfolio within their wholesale business.
Right.
And so I befriended them, and I learned from them, and I helped them with the documentation that they were presenting, and said, "Hey, look, there's a way that you can dispose of these assets when you do them on terms as well."
Right.
And so I had built good relationships with them to help them with that, and so they could go and have those options. Right, I can sell it for cash, I can sell it on terms, and I can resell that paper. I don't have to hold it long term if I don't want to. And so that was a great way to get my foot in the door with them.
And I know also that you helped them kind of create better notes, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. So they in Indiana, in the Midwest, you're going to find, and those of you that are into notes realize this, that the word land contract or contract for deed is a very common term here in the Midwest because it's cultural driven, to where the good old boys, that's what they would do. They would put properties on land contract. They wouldn't do a note mortgage or a note deed of trust because they had a good feeling that if they get the property back, they could just go through an eviction or a forfeiture process. Well, it doesn't work that way very successfully anymore. The borrower makes a couple payments and the judge sees it as they have a lot of equity in the deal. And so you go through a traditional foreclosure. So now I've been coaching these guys, when I first got in the business, and now they're kind of on their own, run it the way that they need to run it, about having a note mortgage and papering it up a different way, and papering up this way to have more security, and it also has more marketability when you want to sell it in the future. So yeah, we definitely went through a process with them, just making little tweaks. Like, they had a good idea, they had a good way that they made the interest, down payments, and kind of underwriting the borrower. They just need to make little tweaks with the security.
And what you did is you showed them how to make a note more marketable and more valuable.
Yes, exactly.
So, and that was good for you. And so, no matter what anybody says about, the wholesale business, the good wholesalers the last few years they've made bank, right?
Yeah.
And so, and really the last couple of years, money was very inexpensive.
Yes.
Right? It's very inexpensive. And now that there's been a little, there's been a little blip in the market with, Chairman Powell, my friend. I call him Jay because we're that tight now.
Yeah, you got a direct line to him.
That, he's saying, come hell or high water, I'm going to get inflation under control, right?
Yeah.
And there's another Fed meeting the end of this month, but that's another story. But anyway, so big hedge funds, they just basically said, which most wholesale deals, right? So you've got a guy or, gal or whatever in Indianapolis, and they're doing wholesale. They're flipping these 100 to 400 house or more people. We're flipping those really at the end of the day to hedge funds, right?
Yeah.
So they would buy, they would buy themselves. They would buy from other small guys that did, 10 wholesale deals a year. They would aggregate those and they would sell them to a hedge fund, and they would make a lot of money. Well, as rates started going up and prices started adjusting just a bit, the hedge funds pulled out. And they pulled out one of our other students that were very good, Jay Redding. I mean, Fort Wayne. And we were talking about this last week. I make the joke and I said, hey, Jay, Fort Wayne, Indiana, the hedge funds have pulled out of there. And he goes, well, thank God, because now maybe I can buy a house cheaper, right?
Right, yeah.
So that has created an opportunity for, guys like us, guys that are in the note business, because, affordability is the key here. So for us, it was maybe a little more difficult when the rates were 2.5%, 3%. But as rates have gotten higher, it's become harder to qualify. You've got a lot of the non-bank banks that are going by the wayside. So that makes it a better opportunity for us. So how do you see that as playing out, Justin? It's just going to mean more creative finance deals is what I see for us being able to buy on terms.
Yeah, and it's happened. It's happened since right before COVID. I started to see it, and then COVID kind of, we'll just say, just kind of put a pause on a lot of different creative things
Mhm.
that we. And then it kind of got back into swing, late 2020, early 21. And then fast forward to today, we've seen a lot of wholesalers learn that they have to adapt, right?
Mhm.
They have to really get creative on buying on terms. They also have to be creative if they do buy a deal, not to also consider this borrower pool now that doesn't have the ability to go out and get a traditional bank loan. So now they figured out, oh, I can underwrite them just like a bank, and I can qualify them in a different manner. I don't have to go through all the bank
Right.
criteria, right? But I can just focus on repaying that debt, and if they can afford to repay it, oh, I can use instruments that the banks use, like Fannie
Mhm.
and Freddie with the note and
Yep.
mortgage. Oh, there I can get insurance on the property as well as lending insurance. A loan policy. And so when we saw that, we helped tweak some of those wholesalers. This is nationwide,
Oh
and
yeah.
so they have figured out a way where they can buy the property and they can actually get it under contract without having any money out of pocket. They can resell it quickly to a borrower, and they can underwrite them, and then they can set up the terms in the way that we would want to buy them after we've coached them on kind of some loose matrix, if you will,
Mhm.
as far as being in a range that we would want to see paper written in and with terms and stuff like that. And so we'll be able to buy the deals at the closing table and kind of have a triple play, if you will. They're buying the property as a wholesale deal. They're also reselling it as a to a borrower buyer. Then they're also selling it to a note buyer as well at the same time. So we kind of have a triple closing now. We've done that several times recently, and it works out really well.
You know, just what we call those buyers you were just talking about. We call them penalty box buyers, right?
Yeah,
Because they've got good credit, they've got cash to put down, but they're like you and I. We're entrepreneurs. We don't have a W-2 paycheck coming in every week, right? We drive the lenders crazy because you
yeah,
may make $1,000 this month and $40,000 next month, right? So it's not that typical buyer. And let's face it, for the last 2.5 years since the whole COVID thing, it's been harder to buy a house because everybody was chasing that little bit of inventory, right? So it's hard, but
exactly.
it was easy to sell, right?
Yes.
And so that if you can focus on that acquisition, right, buying that house with creative terms, then you don't have to worry about selling it because again, there are less loan programs. The big banks, the Wells Fargo's, the Bank of America, they're cutting down the number of loan programs they have, and then the non-banks like Rocket,
Rocket.
some of the other Lending Tree, and they're just not being able to do this. So it really is an interesting time for folks like us that are in the note business.
Yeah, if people have sizable down payments,
Yeah,
it works out really well for both the seller and the buyer.
yeah,
And that's really the key. It's the folks that don't have much savings. It's just unfortunate. They just can't get into a home because they're just setting themselves up for failure as far as
yeah.
repaying that debt. But yeah, there are a lot of folks out there that have that sizable down payment and are definitely willing to get their hands dirty and fix up that property at the same time as they live in it.
Yeah, I was talking to a lady yesterday, and actually, you were on the. It was on the call on one of the
Okay.
membership calls yesterday, and when I said the lady Suzanne, right, and I said so she was talking about selling one of her rental houses, right, and it was funny because she is the type of person if she weren't already in note school and know what we know, right, but she was brand new to us, but she's has 4 properties, they're all 4 paid for. She's tired of being a landlord. And those are the type properties that the owners that you can chase.
Yep.
And we kind of played with the numbers, and she could make more money being the property or being the bank versus the landlord. But some of the guys out there, they just want to be a landlord, and that's
Right.
okay too, right? If you buy it right, you got multiple exit strategies.
That's correct. You're right.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break, and we're going to run a really quick commercial about our upcoming event, and which is NoteExpo. So why don't we go ahead and run that? We'll come back and we'll talk a little more about NoteExpo, and then we'll talk a little more about what you do as far as flipping notes and wholesaling and non-performing notes. So let's run that commercial. We are at NoteExpo.
It's amazing.
Phenomenal.
Just fantastic.
It's like recharging my batteries. I get enthused again. I meet a lot of other people in the business. I get a lot of ideas.
Connections. I've made so many friends over the years of high-level investors, high-level business people.
You get out here and see people who are doing things on a level you're not there yet. So that inspires me.
It's been a great event. Lots of good people, lots of opportunities to network, lots of education, and the vendors are great.
Meeting all the people here from all over the country, wanting to know about notes.
And then the networking is just
with
crazy.
all these people has just been stunning.
It's like coming home to a family, and there's a lot of smart people here, and everybody's welcome in. It's always good seeing familiar faces.
I'm sure it's going to empower me and lead to much better growth.
And there really is no other place you can go to figure out what's going on, like in the guts of the industry.
We're already registered, so we have put our money down.
All right, so Justin,
Very
that
nice.
you know, I got to tell a little story on myself here. So that was I recorded that stuff at NoteExpo last year,
Okay.
and so typically it was a side profile when they were, because I was looking at the person that I was talking to, and Justin, when they sent me this and said, "Oh, this turned out really well," I go, "Oh my God, is that my belly?" So I looked at it and I go, damn, I've got 60 days. I'm losing that.
Hey, Joe, there's an old saying that the camera adds 10 pounds to you. So it may not be as bad as you think.
So we have a picture from 2019, I believe, at NoteExpo. And this is a picture of Justin.
Oh, yeah.
And that is Justin. And that is, he's got the big check. That's hard to cash that big check, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah, you can't put it through the ATM slot. It just doesn't work.
So that's Justin. That's Eddie. And that is our managing director, Bob Repass. And Justin had won our case study contest. So at NoteExpo, and he was in front of, I don't know, 400 or 500 people there at NoteExpo, and
Millions,
he was one
Joe.
of the big winners for sure.
Millions.
Yes. So I am so proud of that, and I think Justin, and you can pull that down. I think Justin that was some of a deal that you did where you raised some capital. And that in 2019, did you flipped about what 40 performing loans? Was that the year you did that?
That about over 50.
Over 50. Okay,
Over 50.
sorry, yeah. And it was about what $4,000 to $6,000 a pop, I think, right?
Yeah, I kind of figured out quickly how I could take somebody else's money and have a revolving line of credit with them, and then go and buy assets and sell assets, buy and sell, almost like a miniaturized fund, if you will. And so when I was able to do that, I was able to re-leverage, recapitalize on that money that I was borrowing just over and over and over again. So when I was repaying the debt back, it was so small compared to what I was making. And that's what that case study was, is we showed the numbers of what that looks like when you accelerate that time frame over a 12-month period. And we saw what the growth was in the portfolio and happening in real time, right? I wasn't monitoring that or looking at it. My goal was to try to be aggressive with it and buy, then sell, buy, then sell, and buy, then sell. And looking back over it, when you and I did the case study together, we were like, oh, wow, this was extremely smart thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and Justin, so, we talked about, you doing non-performing when we got, and again, that was the non-performing from, that you did when you first got in 2016, was, kind of the leftovers from, the 07, 08 debacle, right? The Great Recession. And then it kind of went away. I mean, for a couple of years, right? Like 3 years, almost 4 years, from like 2017 to 2020, and now we're seeing that cycle come back around, being better this time because notes really aren't. They're more equitable, right? The houses are worth more than the notes worth, and you flip 50 notes in a year, and I know you're still doing that, but I know you're owning some of the notes. You're keeping some residual income in those notes now.
Yeah, we've learned to tweak our business, right? Every year we kind of adapt and adjust. And so we don't go for quantity as far as flipping notes per year.
Right.
We're kind of figuring out how to be most profitable and to maximize our profit. So we definitely don't flip that many loans per year, but we definitely buy assets the right way. And we do it in a manner at which we can be more profitable and not have to work. Those of you in the note business, you know that when you do that many deals in a year, there's a lot of closing and due diligence and post-closing processes that kind of chew up a lot of your time. So if you do less deals with more profit, this makes more sense and you free up more time. Yeah, the non-performing loans have definitely changed a little bit, and like you said, they've come back. And I'd kind of put it into two different categories, Joe. I'd kind of put private seller financing non-performing loans, and I'd probably put like hedge funds non-performing loans as well. And they're two totally different animals within them as well. Yeah. And so my focus, along with Richard Thornton, we kind of partnered up on some deals, is we've been finding a lot of these mom and pop notes that have defaulted borrowers. And so we take over that loan for them. Right. And come to find out, a lot of these borrowers are willing to make a deal. They're willing to work with you and they're willing to make it right. They just didn't want to deal with the other person. Right. So it behooved us to kind of move in there and make those changes. And so now a lot of our non-performings that we're buying are actually just reperforming.
Yeah, they're reperforming. You can go in, you can work with the buyer, you can get them paying again. You've got a cash flow. And Justin, I come down to this, is that it's all about having, spending a minute and having a conversation with these note owners, right? And giving them the option. Most people don't. They just want to, you got to make a deal today, right? And it's just warming that up. And speaking of, creative financing, you've kind of, you have developed that, and you've become the note expert in Indianapolis, literally. I mean, I can say that. You may not say that, but I'm going to say that, right? And then you've figured out how to make this meetup situation work, in this podcast now that you've got. Talk a little bit about your podcast, and it's BrightPath Notes, and you'll have Justin's information here in just a minute. But go ahead and talk about that. Yeah, it's on the other side. There you go.
On the camera, I'm backwards on the camera.
I know. I'm
a little under the weather. Sorry, guys.
Yes.
So I have a monthly meetup. I used to call it back in 2017, to where I would be face-to-face in person with people, and I would go through, a presentation on notes and note investing and things like that. It has slowly morphed into, within a couple of years of that, into just an online-only presence, and now we call it a broadcast. And so that broadcast is kind of televised on our YouTube and Facebook and other social media channels live once a month. And that's kind of an hour-long educational program where we go over deals that we buy. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with them, and we talk about things that are happening in the news, similar to what NoteSchool TV is in that aspect. And we get a lot of people to get the bug of want to be a note investor from that standpoint. Our podcast that we do is an audio based channel that we also record the video on our BrightPath Notes YouTube channel. And that's more focused on conversation and developing not sort of arguments or disagreements, but sort of like debate and banter back and forth on specific subjects as it has to do with real estate and specifically note investing. And that's more of a 20 to 30 minute program as well. That's what that's designed to. So we got kind of two different channels to feed you different types of information, if you will. That's kind of helps get the word out with what we do at BrightPath Notes.
Yeah, I would say you're vertically integrated now, Justin, and you go by that mantra that a lot of the guys, like, we're friends, and a lot of the guys that we're friends with, and I always say, this NoteSchool community we have, that's some of the best friends that I've made over the last 10 years, right? I mean, I can call Justin, or Justin can call Richard, or Mariska and Larry, or whomever it is, right? And we've got this network of things, but. Zig Ziglar, Dave Staunton, who was on the NoteExpo commercial, was saying, he's a great guy, and he kind of turned me on to the old Zig Ziglar saying that you can get anything you want if you'll help other people get what they want. And I think that's a good mantra. So NoteExpo, Justin, it's coming up first weekend of November. I love it. It's a chance to see everybody, and it's a true. It's an expo, right? Vendors, hedge funds, servicing companies, all of those are there. And guys, if you hadn't been, you need to go. You can just go to NoteSchool, NoteExpo.com or NoteExpo 22 and Google it. And, it's a great time. And Justin, you've been every year. Well, except for, you were even there when we did the 2020 virtual, which it was good, but it just wasn't like it was last year. Last year was amazing when we went back last year.
No, and that commercial that you guys did was awesome, by the way. And everything those folks that you were interviewing is 100% true. That's what we all think when we go there, and that's why we come back for more. Right. It's an event that it can be online, which it was for 1 year intentionally because we had no other choice and we had to do it online. And it does work online, but there's just it's a whole nother level of being there in person and talking with people and having side conversations and introducing people. There's a 24 hours in a day, right, Joe?
Right.
So there's, even though the program might be from 9 to 5, let's just say, but there's a lot of hours in the day that you can network with people and you can learn things and you can ask specific questions to vendors that you've always wanted to ask them and not be able to get them on the phone or not be able to email them and get your answer that you want in a timely fashion. So I've aired out some grievances with some vendors as well during NoteExpo, and it works. It's like they understand my pain point and I understood what they're going through, and we could work things out in a manner like that.
Yeah.
But I love NoteExpo. It is the one note event per year that I definitely have on the counter that I am absolutely going to, because what all those folks were saying during the commercial, it's like there's a camaraderie, there's a way to leverage off of other people's, whether they have money but not enough time, if they have time and not enough money, or they have skills. And so you can find ways. That's how Richard and I kind of blended together, because we both had different things we were trying to accomplish, and we could do it better if we were as a team.
Yep. And Richard's in Northern California and Justin's in Indianapolis, right? And by the way, guys, you don't have to be a NoteSchool student or a NoteSchool member, or, NoteExpo is open to the entire world, whomever it is that wants to come, right? So, Justin, I'm proud of you, dude. I really am. I am a big fan of Justin. He's a stand-up guy. He's built a business. He's built a lifestyle. He's built a business in BrightPath Notes. And, I'm proud of the guy that you are, and for, raising those girls and just being a good guy. You've done really well. And I want you to know that I admire you and I admire what you've done. And the friendship that we've developed over the years as well. So
I appreciate that, Joe.
Justin, I'm going to take us out here. So again, if you more information about NoteExpo, just go to NoteExpo 22, and you can sign up there, get more information. Keep those comments coming. We love to hear from you in the comment section. And guys, thanks again. I know we ran over a little bit in time today, but we had an amazing guest and we had amazing time catching up. So thanks so much. We will see you same time, same place next week. Bye now.